r/AskReddit by Redmond Dtes. What are some of the most clever or genius crimes ever committed? A guy dressed like a road maintenance worker robs a cash truck outside of a bank. But prior to this, he put an ad on Craigslist offering work for $28 an hour, and anyone interested had to show up at the bank wearing the same road maintenance attire. A dozen guys, all unwitting decoys, were milling about the parking lot as the robber escaped on an inner tube floating down a nearby river. There was a parking attendant who collected the parking fees for a public zoo. He worked there for decades. One day he just stopped showing up. After a few days, they called the city and said the parking attendant quit and they needed to hire a new one. The city told them that it didn't cost any money to park on that lot. The 1976 bank robbery in Nice, France. They tunneled into the vault on the Bastille Day long weekend, stole over 40 million francs worth of cash, securities, and valuables, and spray painted without weapons, neither hatred nor violence, on the wall. The leader was caught, and during his trial, he jumped out of the window, landed on a car, got on the back of a waiting motorcycle, and disappeared. The 1986 Los Angeles tunnel bank robberies. Three people used ATVs and other equipment to traverse LA's storm drainage system, cut holes into bank vaults, and stole millions of dollars worth of cash and valuables. When investigated, cops discovered they were probably very close to cutting their way into another bank vault that would have netted them tens of millions. They've never been caught or identified. Scene: the town of Köpenick, a suburb of Berlin. The year is 1906. An unfamiliar Prussian guards captain walked into the army barracks and ordered a small group of enlisted men to come with him. At the captain's direction, the soldiers arrested the mayor and city treasurer on embezzlement charges. The captain made arrangements for the local police to see to law and order and prevent outgoing phone calls for 1 hour, sent the soldiers to escort the arrested officials to a particular guard headquarters in Berlin for interrogation, and personally took custody of the town's cash box as evidence. When the soldiers and their prisoners arrived at headquarters, they were met with surprise and confusion, as the people there had never heard of the captain, or of any cause or orders to arrest the officials. Back in Köpenick, the captain was nowhere to be found. Turns out the captain was a former shoemaker named Wilhelm Voigt, who had a few months previously gotten out of prison on charges of burglary and fraud. In the meantime, he had cobbled together a passable uniform from bits he'd bought at second-hand stores, and the entire operation was an elaborate robbery. He got caught a week and a half later because he'd been careless in talking about his plans before the heist. A little over a year into his 4-year sentence, the Kaiser pardoned him on grounds of, "I'm not even mad, that was amazing." Maybe not a crime, but I remember a story of an elderly man who had been diagnosed with some sort of disease that would kill him within a year, so he got life insurance and killed himself with a gun. The thing was though, is the insurance didn't pay out for suicide, so what he did was buy balloons, wrapped it around the gun, and killed himself outside, and the balloons plus the wind carried the gun miles away from his house. The police ruled it as a murder, so the insurance paid out to his kids and anyone else on the plan, and it was only discovered a few months later when someone found the gun. But because the insurance company had already paid out, there was no obligation from the family to pay it back. His name was Alan Abrahamson, if you want more details. Selling the Eiffel Tower as scrap metal was a great con that doesn't get a lot of attention. Victor Lustig had some brass ones. Dude also sold a money-making machine and ran a con on Al Capone just for love of the game and got away with it. The McDonald's Monopoly Scam. The head of security of the marketing company that helped McDonald's administer their famous Monopoly game led a scheme where he stole the winning pieces and with a group of people helped cheat the company out of like $24 million over the course of several years. He was responsible for carrying the winning pieces in a sealed package and taking them to packaging centers, where he was responsible for applying the winners to soda cups and fry packages that were going to be sent out to McDonald's that had already been randomly selected by a computer. Basically, he was accidentally sent a bunch of tamper-proof seals that allowed him to swap out the winning pieces that he was responsible for carrying with non-grand prize ones. He'd dodge the auditor by hiding in an airport bathroom and doing the swap there. Then he'd do his job as usual, but sent the losing tickets out while he pocketed the winners. He'd then get his friends and family to help find people to claim the winning prize for a promise of splitting the money. Eventually the feds got a tip about one of the winners and noticed that there was an unusual cluster of winners of the game in states like Florida and Georgia, where the guy and his family lived. Remember, the tickets were supposed to go out to random destinations around the United States. Several people got arrested. Not a great crime, but clever. Guy I grew up with was a grade school dropout. Got himself a tow truck. But cheap for the contract to service rental cars at a certain airport. Okay, EWR. Back in the day, cars had distributors. When this guy needed money, he just pulled the distributor wire on a rental car or two. This resulted in a call to him to tow and fix said vehicle, which he happily did, sending the rental car company a fat bill for complex repairs when all he had to do was plug in the wire. He worked this scam for years. Reminds me of the company who had a contract with New York City to repair the rips on the subway train car seats. The company hired people to vandalize the subway car seats, apparently using a different design to know which contractor to pay for the damage. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum theft has to be top of the list. To this day, multiple Rembrandts are still missing, with zero indication who took them or where they are. D.B. Cooper was definitely an ingenious plan. Knowing which plane had back stairs that he could jump out of. And no one knows for sure if he survived. They never found D.B. Cooper, but there's also nothing to prove he survived. Scammers steal thousands of dollars every day from people all around the world. I'm not sure if it's genius or just the law of averages. Make enough phone calls and eventually you'll find someone you can trick. In 1989, a robbery occurred at the armored car outside of a bank in Minnesota. As a guard was loading money, 3 armed men subdued him. Then, a van drove in front of the armored car, and another man put a bomb on the hood and threatened to detonate it. After the thieves fled, the bomb squad was called in to defuse the bomb. They found it was a fake. In under a minute, the thieves took over $1 million and vanished. Police believe it was related to a similar crime that occurred in 1986 in Maryland that also used a fake bomb. A guy in Springfield, Massachusetts robbed a bank in a wheelchair. He got the money and left, then proceeded to circle the block, passing the police many times. Nobody told the police he was in a wheelchair. Long story a little shorter, it was winter and freezing cold. He wanted to get arrested because he had just been released from prison and wanted to go back where it was warm and had food. So in my opinion, it has to be the Great Train Robbery in 1963. Believe me, it was wild. A group of guys in the United Kingdom stopped a Royal Mail train and managed to steal like £2.6 million, equivalent to tens of millions now. They used insider info, messed with the signals to stop the train, and executed it like a heist movie. Not condoning it obviously, but it was a pretty insane plan for its time. And Ronnie Biggs got away with it for decades. He escaped prison after 15 months and fled to Australia and then Brazil. The United Kingdom didn't have an extradition treaty with Brazil until 1997, so he was able to live openly, and he even sang vocal on several records, including the Sex Pistols. He was finally brought back in 2001 and jailed. Then in 2009 he was released on compassionate grounds, before dying 4 years later aged 84. Being a TV preacher seems to pay pretty well. That's all folks. Thank you for watching. If you like videos like this one, why not like and subscribe for more. Have a nice evening.